Let me ask you something that might be a little uncomfortable. If your team is underperforming, if deadlines keep getting missed, if the same problems keep showing up, and if you keep having the same conversations over and over again, what if the problem isn't your team? What if it's you? And I know that's not easy to hear, but stay with me because by the end of this video, I'm going to show you a pattern I've seen in dozens of organizations, from small sales teams to mid-market companies, and it almost always comes back to the same thing: the leader. Now, a few years ago, I was brought in to work with a company that was just stuck, right? They had a solid offering, good market fit, a team of about 15 people, but growth had completely plateaued. And the owner, let's call him Marcus, was completely frustrated. He felt like he was doing everything right? He was working 60-hour work weeks. He was in every meeting. He was solving every problem. And yet his team kept dropping the ball. And so I sat in one of their leadership meetings, and within the first 10 minutes, I saw exactly what was going on. The sales manager said the marketing team wasn't sending qualified leads. The marketing director said the sales team wasn't following up properly. And the ops lead said neither of them were giving her enough notice to deliver on time. And Marcus was just sitting at the head of the table, nodding, along, occasionally jumping into referee, but never actually resolving anything. So by the end of that meeting, nothing had actually been decided, and everyone left frustrated. And they all went back to doing exactly what they'd been doing before. Now, here's where the things got interesting. After the meeting, Marcus pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you see what I'm dealing with? And nobody takes ownership around here." And I said, "Marcus, who runs the organization?" And he paused. "Well, I do." And then you got to own the meeting, right? You own that dynamic. You own the fact that your leaders are pointing fingers at each other instead of solving problems. And that didn't happen because of them. It happened because of the system they're operating in. And you built a system. Now, he didn't love hearing that, but it was the beginning of a real shift. And it's what he needed to hear at the time. Now, let me pause here for a second because I want to be very clear about something. I'm not saying this to blame leaders. I'm saying this because the fastest path to change an organization is changing yourself first. And most leaders are always are typically looking in the wrong direction. Now, here's something I've learned working with business owners across industries. Ownership is not a mindset you talk about in team meetings. It's a behavior that starts at the top and works its way down. So when a leader constantly models ownership, when they say, "I should have been clear," or "that's all me," or let me show you how we fix this, their team learns that language. They start using it too, not because they were told to, but because that's the culture. And the inverse is just as true, right? When a leader is constantly deflects, when they say, "The team dropped the ball," or "I don't know why nobody can figure this out," or "I've told them 100 times," their team learns that language too. Blame becomes the organizational dialect, and once it takes hold, it's very hard to root out. So let me tell you about another situation. I worked with another company, a sales organization, where the owner, Diane, came to me furious about one of her top performers. This rep had made a significant error on a client proposal, and it wasn't a small thing. It cost the company about $80,000, and Diane wanted to let them go. And I asked her to walk me through the offer process. How did the rep submit the offer? Who reviewed it? What were the checkpoints? And she thought for a second, and then she said, "Well, they just sent it to the client." And so I asked, "Well, who reviews it before it goes out?" Well, the rep is supposed to double check it. It was a response. I asked, "Is there a template, a checklist, a second set of eyes anywhere in the process?" And I got a long pause, and the answer was no. So here's the question: was this a rep problem or was this a systems problem? Right? The rep made a mistake for sure. That's true, but the organization had no process to catch that mistake before it reached the client. There were no guardrails. There was no review step. There was no template that standardized the key fields. So the system failed way before the rep ever did. Now, here's the mistake most leaders make in this situation. They try to fix the person and ignore the system, right? They write someone up or they try to retrain one individual, but the underlying process stays exactly the same. And 2 months later, a different rep makes a similar mistake. And so the cycle continues. So real ownership means asking, what did I fail to build that allowed this to happen? But you know what, before I go further, I want to mention something that might be generally useful for you. If you're watching this and you're a business owner or sales leader, there's a good chance you already sense where your growth is being held back. But sensing it and being able to articulate it clearly and actually do something about it, those are completely different things. So that's why I put together something special, what I call the Growth Constraint Assessment. It's a structured evaluation I created to help business owners and leaders identify exactly where their growth is constrained. So we look at 5 specific areas: decision bottlenecks, delegation effectiveness, leadership team strength, systems versus people dependence, and time leverage. So what you walk away is a breakdown of where your leadership leverage is highest and honestly where it's lowest. So you'll see clearly where growth is being blocked, and you'll have a practical next steps you can actually act on. So if this sounds something that would be valuable for you, there's a link below this video. It only takes a few minutes to complete, and I can review every one personally with you. Okay, back to the framework. So there's a concept I come back to again and again with the leaders I work with. I call it the mirror principle. So your organization is a reflection of your leadership, not partially, not mostly, but almost entirely. And the way decisions get made in your company, well, that reflects how you make decisions. The way your team communicates, that reflects how you communicate. The way problems get escalated or buried or solved, well, that reflects your tolerance for each of those behaviors as well. And here's why this matters practically. If you want to change your organization, you have to be willing to examine yourself first. And not in a self-help way, but in a very operational, practical way. So ask yourself, where do I avoid making hard decisions? Because I guarantee your team avoids making hard decisions in those same areas. Also ask yourself, where do I fail to follow up on what I said I was going to do? Because again, your team has learned that follow through is optional because they've watched you model that as well. Ask yourself, where do I accept vague answers and unclear accountability? Because again, your team has learned that vague answers are sufficient because you've never pushed back on them. And this is not about self-criticism. This is about understanding leverage. The fastest way to change a team's behavior is to change the leader's behavior. Because teams don't follow instructions, they follow examples. Now let me show you what this looks like when a leader actually makes that shift, because this is the part that most people don't see coming. I want to tell you about a leader named Rafael. He ran a sales division, and when I first started working with him, he was exhausted, right? He was doing way too much. His team was completely dependent on him for almost every decision, and he resented them for it. And we worked together about 3 months, and during that time, I helped Rafael do a few things, specific things. He stopped answering questions his team could answer themselves. Instead, he started asking, what do you think the right answer is? And he did this consistently, every day. It was uncomfortable at first for him and for them, but within a few weeks, his team started bringing him solutions instead of problems. Awesome result, right? And he started running his one-on-ones differently as well. Instead of reviewing activity metrics and talking about pipeline, he started asking his team leads, what's one thing I could do differently that would make your job easier? That single question changed the entire dynamic of those meetings. And he started owning outcomes publicly. When something went wrong, instead of letting the team feel the heat, he said, all right, in front of the group, you know what, that one's on me. Here's what I missed and what we're going to do differently going forward. So 6 months after we started working together, his team's performance had improved significantly. But more importantly, he had his life back, right? He was working a few hours, he was less reactive, and he had space to think strategically. And when I asked him what changed, he said something I've never forgotten. He said, I realized I was the ceiling. The only way to raise the ceiling was to raise myself. Great leadership lesson. All right, well, that's the truth about leadership ownership that most people just don't want to accept. Your team is not the problem. Your team is the product of you, right? They are the product of every system you've built or failed to build, every expectation you've set or failed to set, every behavior you've modeled or, again, failed to model. And that's actually the good news because it means you have control over your organization more than you think. And you don't need a different team, you just need a different approach. Take ownership of the systems, right? Take ownership of the culture. Take ownership of the environment you've created and start building the one that you actually want. Your team will absolutely follow. They always do. So if this resonated with you, I ask you to do 3 things. First, hit the like button. It helps this content reach other business owners and leaders who need to hear it. Second, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I put out content every week on building businesses that grow without consuming your entire life. And third, if you're a business owner or sales leader and you want to get clear on exactly where your growth is being constrained, then again, I'll invite you to schedule a free strategy consultation with me. We'll spend an hour together identifying your key leadership bottlenecks and just talking through what it would look like to build systems that let your business scale without burning you out in the process. The link to the schedule is in the description below. I'm Guillermo Salas, and I'll see you on the next one.